Well, welcome to this evening's alumni event. As far as we're aware, this is the first time that we've ever done anything of this scale in the UK, and it is great to see almost 400 of you here this evening, particularly because more than half of you have never been to an event organised by the university before. My name is Patrick Degg, and I'm the Director of Advancement and Events. The events bit, you can probably figure out what we do. But what is advancement? Well, we organise a broad range of activities that seek to connect us with a wide variety of audiences that might want to support Surrey in some way. At one end of the spectrum, we publish the Forever Surrey magazine, and I hope many of you will have received a copy, or in this digitally enabled age will have read it online. If you haven't, then please do. An enormous amount of effort goes into making it interesting and relevant. But we also run the university's volunteer and mentoring schemes, which allow alumni such as yourselves to give back and to contribute to the Surrey journey of existing students. We also run a network of international clubs and societies from San Francisco to the Middle East, Hong Kong and China, which allow alumni like you to continue to maintain their Surrey links, even though they might be geographically far from Guildford. And you are by far our most important constituency, now numbering some 117,000 in, at the last count, 172 countries. So while others around the world seem intent on creating borders and building walls, we at Surrey are as global as we have ever been, and we are proud to continue to play our rightful part in the global community. And of course, the advancement team also fundraises to support the university's mission, because government funding and student fees alone will simply not allow us to compete effectively in an increasingly globalized higher education market. Hopefully this won't be a surprise to any of you, because 25% of you actually give back to the university. You might be surprised to learn that last year we raised £7.2 million from philanthropic sources, including you. And 5.4 million of that went to support research. So just think about that for a moment. £5.4 million of research dealing with the world's challenges, which might otherwise not have been funded, is now being done at Surrey through the generosity of those who support us. But we also support student clubs and societies, and I'm sure many of you were members of one or other of the societies, and the Forever Surrey Fund this year has made grants to 18 of them, which enable them to update their kit and equipment and enable their participants to contribute at the highest levels nationally. PTY bursaries, and again I'm sure many of you had an interesting third year out, support disadvantaged students in taking up one of our industry-leading professional training years. An astonishing 40% of our students who go on a third year PTY placement receive a job offer from their placement employer. And of course, we also fund a broad range of scholarships and hardship grants, because we believe that anyone should have the chance of a Surrey experience irrespective of their financial circumstances. Our annual telephone campaign starts this week. A third of you are scheduled to receive a call. Do please take the opportunity to have a nice old chat with a very warm and welcoming current student and hear about some of the great things that are going on campus at the moment. So, what is happening this evening? Well, hot on the heels of a rather delayed State of the Union address across the pond, you'll be hearing from our President and Vice-Chancellor with his State of the University address. I will then be delighted to introduce Professor Jim Al-Khalili, who's going to talk to you about AI. And if that is not enough, a rather unexpectedly large number of our uber-talented students from the Guildford School of Acting, which became part of the university in 2009, will then entertain us. And that's all they've told me, should I be nervous? And after all that, you will have plenty of time upstairs to remember and reconnect. Finally, do please remember to share this evening on social, @Surrey Alumni, #ForeverSurrey. But for now, it is my pleasure to introduce our President and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Max Liu.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. I apologize for my funny voice. I have a bit of a cold tonight. And thank you for making that analogy. Breaking walls is what we do, unlike someone across the Atlantic is building walls. I cannot match the State of the Union address, but I hope I won't get the kind of applauses that a particular person got in the State of the Union address. Anyway, it's a great delight for me as Vice Chancellor to welcome our alumni. It's such a wonderful crowd. I already had an opportunity, privilege to talk to some of you. I hope after the proceedings, the formal proceedings, I will meet many of you. As Patrick mentioned, one of our USPs is PTY, Professional Training Program, that is supported by some 2,300 partners and industrial and business partners from around the globe. And many of you in the audience actually supported the PTY program. So in this room we have, as Patrick mentioned, 400-something alumni, right from the 50s. You might question why 50s, because we had Battersea Polytechnic, so our heritage go all the way back, and to the recent graduates in the class, from the class of 2018. So it's wonderful to have you. While some of you may not have been to a gathering like this before, and it's a long while since you had a connection back to the university, I hope you do enjoy this gathering, this event, and do rekindle the old friendship with the old friends and reconnect with the university lectures. We have many of our colleagues here, and make new friends and hear how the university is going. Right, the university, okay, oh, someone controlling this for me, or, okay. Oh, that's the beautiful lakeside. The university today is a truly global university with some 17,000 students and 1/3 of whom are from overseas. And since Battersea, the Surrey's heritage has been built on excellence and the real-world impact. And you will see the stories coming out of this presentation and also Professor Jim Al-Khalili later on. So we now have a world-class profile with rising international reputation. The type of courses we offer has also changed significantly over the years. And for example, in 2015, you might have seen that one of the images, we opened our school for veterinary medicine, one of the only 8 in the UK. And our first batch of graduates, vets from Surrey, will graduate this summer. In 2010, I think it was 2010, we are very delighted to welcome the Guildford School of Acting, which built on its 80 years legacy and reputation, came becoming part of the university, and we will enjoy a special show and performance from our fabulous GSA singers this evening. And of course, our campus has transformed dramatically, I would say, with the development of the Manor Park campus. The Surrey Sports facility, a state-of-art facility, high-quality student accommodation, as you've seen from that film, and vibrant and very, very dynamic Surrey Research Park, where we have 120 companies. So at Surrey, we are, as Patrick acknowledged, we are very proud of the fantastic work and the great endeavors and the achievements of our alumni, 117,000 of you around the globe who are actually doing great things to make a difference and in shaping the future of the world. Just to give you a few examples, well, you see some of the famous faces. I think, to spare the blushes of Jim, I think he's one of those. You will hear from him later. I won't talk too much. He's recently been recognized or acknowledged and awarded the Fellowship of the Royal Society. And since about 2005, we had 50 major awardees of Oscars, 4 of them, and 9 Grammy awardees, and 8 BAFTAs winners, and 3 Emmy Awards. Recently, alumnus Matthew Scalding, who graduated in 2002, with a Bachelor of Science in Sound Recording and Music and Sound Recording, recently won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Sound Editing for his work in The Black Mirror. And Dame Linda Dobbs, I think she did law and Russian in the 70s, and she made history in 2004 when she became Britain's first black High Court judge. And of course, if we go back to the Battersea era, Sir Alec Isagonis, who is famous, innovative car designer, and he designed the what? The Mini. And of course, we have our performing arts graduates, Oscar nominees, and the Golden Globe and BAFTA winner, Brenda Blayton, and Michael Gibson, the recent Olivier awardee for his role in the groundbreaking musical Hamilton. And last but not least, I just name a few because time only allows me to name a few. There are many distinguished alumni, including those in the audience here. Sir Martin Sweeting, you've seen his picture, and he's the pioneer of the Surrey satellite. He set off a small satellite industry revolution. And he chairs the Surrey Satellite Technology Company, which is on our research park, now is Airbus company, and still making satellites, I believe, for the Galileo GPS system as a European Space Agency program. So your university, the University of Surrey, is one of the leading universities in the UK, reflected in many of the league tables, and I won't go through all the details, but many programs, some 9 to 10 programs in absolutely top 10 in the country, and overall in the top 20. And of course, we're very proud to see the university rising in the national league tables, and with gaining a great momentum and credibility around the world. Of course, as you've seen from the film, collaborations is in our DNA. We're very proud of our heritage back from Battersea era, engaging with the industry, the real world, to make a real difference. And for this matter, I think our PTY program, is one of the USPs, contributed to the #1 ranking by QS World Employability Ranking last year, and #1 in the UK, #7 in the world. Of course, for 50 years, we've been at the forefront of research and innovation that have changed lives for the better. Some of this is on the chart here. There's a timeline from the first small satellite and Alf Adams' quantum well laser. And in fact, Professor Alf Adams' quantum well strand layer laser is a mouthful, I think for physicists in this room, you understand what it is one of the top 10 British inventions of all time. It laid the foundation for streaming of the internet, and also all the first generation DVDs all built on this technology. And more recently, our world-leading center in sleep research in the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences has developed a new blood test for sleep deprivation. And this could help us to keep our roads and skies safer. And of course, the 5G Innovation Center has built a £26 million test bed, and this is the first and biggest R&D test network for 5G technology, now that you can support 1 million users for testing all sort of advanced technologies for vertical applications. You seen the film about the Removed Debris satellite, which was launched in summer last year, and completed a first mission in testing the technology to remove space debris. Did you know that there's 7,000 tons of garbage there in the sky that actually become hazardous and could cause catastrophic damage to satellites, telecommunication, and space station indeed. I think if those of you who've seen the movie Gravity, you probably recognize some of the scenery there. In fact, I think Chris Bernstead won the Oscars, who's our alumnus, in that movie for sound editing. Right, now continue on the digital revolution front. Of course, the Center for Vision and Speech and Signal Processing is an international center of excellence in AI and machine perception. Their pioneer work have underpinned many applications in biometrics, communication, and medical imaging, and other creative industries. Just a couple of examples. An award-winning health management system that uses a network of trackers and sensors can remotely monitor and care for the health of dementia patients. And this is an award-winning development in the last couple of years at this center, and using 5G network as well. The AI technology now is made into real applications in helping doctors to identify the 3 common symptoms of cancer patients, and namely depression, anxiety, and sleep disturbance. And this could help clinicians to identify the high risk patients and also help manage the quality of life for cancer sufferers. Our latest project is the Learning Hotel, as you have heard, and due to open in 2021. This 4-star hotel on our Manor Park campus is going to be a living lab for researchers and students from the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, already ranked top 5 in the world. And they will use the cutting-edge facilities to test anything from travelers' well-being to sleep and exercise and nutrition, which we are very strong in, and to really develop the next generation technologies and the management to enable travelers to have not only the comfort, but also the benefit of well-being, looking up the well-being care while they stay in the hotel. Of course, as Patrick acknowledged, the advancement team is doing a great job, and many of our colleagues have been busy. In the last few years, we've been traveling to New York, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, and San Francisco to hold this kind of events with alumni, to get alumni to reconnect with themselves and also connect back to the university. And our alumni, many of you in this room very generously supporting the university's endeavors through either giving your time or money and other means, making connections for the university, in fact, also contributing to the research through legacy and gifts and scholarships and so on. So we're really grateful. Whatever your involvement has been, we're grateful to your support and really thank you for your continued involvement with the university. Right, let me just conclude by telling you my personal journey, a story about myself. I know that through my personal journey, how important university education is and how university experience can change one's life for the better. Because I don't sound like British and I have a very funny accent, so you can see that I'm an Aussie, but I grew up in China. So when I was a kid, that was during the Cultural Revolution. All universities closed, so we had no hope to have any further education. But fortunately for me and my wife, Lan, who's here as well, so we, after the opening up and reform by Deng Xiaoping, and we were the first batch of students who gone to the university when the university reopened. So with a scholarship, I managed to finish my degree, and then with another scholarship, I went to Australia to do my PhD. So my personal experience told me university education is so critical to changing one's journey and life. And more importantly, the university education and the opportunity I had actually gave me opportunity to further help change lives of many others. And this is what the University of Surrey all about. We change lives. We change the lives of the students who come every year ready to expand their horizon, and we change the lives of the people struggling with cancer or diabetes and dementia. Our research helps people to live longer and happier lives. We change the lives of the future generations because they will inherit the sustainable energy or clean water, smart cities and communities and telecommunications of the future thanks to our research. So just to conclude, I would like to ask you to continue to be involved with the university and ask you to support your university, the University of Surrey, however you can. And that might be through giving your time, making a donation, or offering a place to our current students. So I'd like to finish by saying that Surrey will always be part of your story. And now I'm very proud to say is part of mine. Thank you very much. Enjoy the evening.
Max, thank you very much for that. In many ways, this is the perfect week to be introducing our next speaker. I know him as a highly respected academic colleague, professor of theoretical physics and holder of a chair in public engagement in science at Surrey, and of late fellow of the Royal Society. But also a colleague with whom I sit on a number of committees, and your university does committees very well. You will probably know him better as host of BBC Radio 4's The Life Scientific, and because I was at home on Monday with a terrible cold, it was a joy to be able to listen to the programme live and not on a podcast, particularly because in this episode the tables were turned and Jim became guest, not host. But he's here this evening to speak to us about artificial intelligence, following his hugely successful BBC 4 programme, The Joy of AI. And here I can make a smutty joke, but I shan't. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Professor Jim Al-Khalili.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It truly is a pleasure for me to be here this evening at this event because, as I guess many of you know, I wear two hats. Like you, I'm an alumnus of the University of Surrey. I did my undergraduate degree, 82 to 86, and then stayed on to do a PhD at Surrey, 86 to 89. Apart from 2 years when I slipped off to UCL for my first postdoc, I then returned to Surrey and have been there ever since, so man and boy. So if you think back, the University of Surrey recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. I've been there for more than 2/3 of its lifetime. I often say to people, either I'm lacking in imagination or the University of Surrey is a good place to be. And I prefer to think it's the latter that's the reason that's kept me there. So it's a pleasure to be speaking to you, my fellow alumni. And as Patrick mentioned, I want to be talking about the subject of artificial intelligence, something that's very interesting, it's very close to my heart, and I believe very important for us as a society to be discussing. My first role when I recently took over as president of the British Science Association, it's a one-year role, and as far as I can tell, the only responsibility we have is to deliver the keynote address at the annual British Science Festival. I think they call upon me to do one or two other things, but that's the main responsibility that I had. So last September, there was the festival was held at the University of Hull, and I gave my presidential address on AI. I believe it's a subject that should be more central in the public conversation, despite all the political and social turmoil the UK seems to be going through at the moment. We're used to living through technological changes that affect all our lives, almost always for the better, making what we do more efficient, making our lives easier, giving us access to information, to services, to better health, to more fulfilling lives. Digital technologies based on electronics and the silicon chip have, as we all know, transformed our lives beyond recognition. AI is the latest in this digital revolution, one that I guess is already with us in many ways. If you think back, those of you, and I don't think it's rude of me to say many of you, will remember a time before we had the internet. I remember one lunchtime as a young academic. I think I just started as a temporary lecturer. I would remember around about 92, in the physics department at Surrey, at lunchtime, chatting to colleagues. And I said, I've heard this new thing, the World Wide Web. Sounds pretty exciting. It's going to change things. And a colleague of mine who will remain nameless said, I think it's a bit of a fad. I don't think it'll come to anything. Here we are, a quarter of a century later. Well, I believe that artificial intelligence will transform our lives as much as the internet and the web have. I also predict it won't take another 25 years to carry out that transformation. It'll be a lot quicker than that. But in a way, it's already moved out of the realms of science fiction and into our daily lives, working often unnoticed behind the scenes. As you heard from Max a few minutes ago, research in AI is something that we at the University of Surrey are taking very seriously. I talk about it, but I'm not talking about it from the point of view of carrying out my daily research in the subject. I'm a theoretical physicist. But you heard about our Centre for Vision, Speech and Signal Processing under the leadership of my colleague, Professor Adrian Hilton. All sorts of avenues are being pursued there in that research institute, looking at different aspects of AI and how AI will transform our lives and new AI technologies. Examples like machine learning, algorithms that look for patterns in data, pattern recognition, things like facial recognition for biometrics and security, sign language recognition, medical imaging for cancer detection. AIs are able to detect tumors in images more accurately and more reliably than the human eye can. Research into robotics and autonomous vehicles. Well, For me, my journey actually, in my interest in AI, began, as Patrick mentioned, I made a BBC4 documentary last year called The Joy of AI. And I started off in that 1-hour documentary showing just how familiar we've become with the use of AI in our daily lives. So I want to start off, I hope you don't feel it's cheating, but I'm going to show a few clips from the program just so I can get a chance to have a sip of water. So here's the first clip, the opening scene from that documentary.
I don't know about you, but I can't remember the last time I used one of these to look something up.
We all know we're in the midst of an AI revolution, changing the way we do almost everything.
Instead, I use this, a computer. It's packed with AI technologies and it's linked online to so many more. Hey Siri, where's my nearest charity shop?
The closest one I see is Age UK. Does that one sound good?
Does?
AI used to only be the stuff of science fiction, but not anymore.
Well, think back to some of the other revolutions, the technological advances throughout history. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, steam power, electricity, they began by being useful in very specific applications. And only gradually did they become such an integral part of our daily lives that we couldn't understand how we ever did without them. Many people now predict that AI will grow to become the pervasive technology of the 21st century and beyond. So what does this mean? Are we going to be living in this futuristic world of Hollywood with flying cars and robot dogs and all the other things that Hollywood does so well? But how much of that is realistic? How much of that is really going to be part of our future? AI is coming. There's no doubt about that. The issue is whether we understand it and whether we're ready for it. So here's a second short clip from my documentary.
Some people are fearful for humanity's future in the age of AI, but I'm not so sure. Too often this story is told as a battle between man and machine.
But for me, it's about man working with machine. So what does AI actually involve? And where will it take us? So a lot of that documentary was actually filmed on the Surrey campus. And getting rid of my books in my office, that's for those of you who remember that my office is in level 3 of BB block. You may be old enough to know it not as level 3, but level 21, which was, times 10 feet above sea level. Remember that, how the floors were numbered? When it comes to AI, there was a recent House of Lords inquiry which resulted in a report last year that concluded that artificial intelligence, handled carefully, could be a great opportunity for the British economy, and that it presents a significant opportunity to improve productivity, which the UK is right to embrace. Their recommendations were designed to support the government in realising the potential of AI, certainly within the UK context, for our society, for our economy, but also, just as importantly, to protect society from its potential risks. How can we as a society choose to respond to these, and how we choose to respond to them will affect us, of course, in our future generations. Last year when I delivered that presidential address, sounds very, very cool, isn't it? The presidential address, it's sort of like the State of the Union address, for the British Science Association festival, the week before I gave the address, the BSA, again, I'm talking to an audience where I shouldn't say BSA, it was the British Association for the Advancement of Science, as was, right? It's now called the BSA. We held a press briefing in London the week before in order to just give a taster to journalists about some of the talks and events that were going to be taking place during the festival week. And I was able to say something about what I was going to talk about. So I gave them a sort of a pre-seed 3 or 4 minute summary of my speech. The journalists there reported on it in various different ways. I won't mention, well, maybe I will, no, I won't mention different publications. One or two of them reported it correctly, because my point in that speech was that we have to be careful if the public are nervous about AI, taking our jobs, the issues about data and transparency and security and so on. There's that danger that there will be a public backlash against it. And if there's a public backlash, the government then withdraws, and of course it's left then in the hands of the big corporations. So that was my main theme, and that was reported. AI revolution at risk of being stifled by in UK by fear-driven backlash. Another one also gave it correctly. Artificial intelligence faces public backlash. Even one of the tabloids, okay, this was The Sun, but I'm saying it because actually they reported it correctly. Bless them in their own way, because everyone who works in AI knows at some point the journalist is going to show a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. Hasta la vista, AI. But the worry was that one or two papers decided that I also said that artificial intelligence is the most important conversation we should be having as a society today. We talk about, well, okay, we're wrapped up with various political issues at the moment, but outside of that, you might argue that climate change or the threat of pandemics or antimicrobial resistance or global poverty, environmental issues, they are more important. But I think AI is the most important conversation we should be having, because it may actually help address many of those challenges facing us in the 21st century anyway. One or two papers decided that saying it's the most important conversation we should be having wasn't quite sexy enough. So they went, artificial intelligence is greater concern than climate change. Or terrorism, says new head of... And another one decided even concern wasn't good enough. Bigger threat. Complete opposite. And so I then, luckily this was a week before the address, so I showed this slide during my address to highlight one of the issues facing us when we're talking about artificial intelligence and how it might affect us as a society, is the way the media portrays it. Let me make it clear. First of all, the media's obsession with sensationalism and the fact that fear sells is not new. Along with the Hollywood depiction of machines taking over the world, has, of course, added a lot of misinformation to the debate about AI. The Terminator movies are good fun, don't get me wrong, but we do need, as a society, to be more sensible about the risks of AI, because it's both prudent and logical that we debate and invest in AI ethically and safely. So both we as a public, politicians, policymakers, have a responsibility to understand the capabilities and the limitations of artificial intelligence technology as it becomes increasingly part of our daily lives. As I showed you in that first clip, AI is to some extent already part of our daily lives. Apple's Siri, Amazon's Alexa, Google Translate, these wonders we're already sort of beginning to take for granted, that we don't need to take a phrase book whenever we go abroad. If you've got a smartphone, it'll do it for you. The advent of what is sometimes referred to as the fourth revolution, for the fourth industrial revolution, these digital technologies that are coming around the corner, sees AI technologies, intelligent automation, entering into many industries. I'm sure many of you who work in industries where you're starting to see AI playing a role. Often it's combining with other technologies, cloud technologies, the Internet of Things, virtual, augmented reality, and even in biotech and medicine and health. So what exactly is AI? It's a good time to define what we mean by it. The current definition goes as follows. It's the broad range of technologies with the ability to perform tasks that would otherwise require human intelligence, like visual perception, speech recognition, language translation. It often has the capacity to learn or adapt to new experiences or stimuli, so-called machine learning. But this definition is already starting to look outdated. Pattern recognition in data, whether in images or speech, decision-making based on that recognition, is really about rather simple AI, the simple AI that we have with us today. It doesn't encompass the logical problem-solving or even the creativity that we're already seeing in AI in a rudimentary sense. AI technologies aim in the long term to reproduce, even surpass the abilities that would require intelligence if humans were to perform them. These include learning, adaptation, sensory understanding and interaction, reasoning, planning, optimization, autonomy, and indeed even creativity and intuition, which for a lot of people that suddenly raises alarm bells. Oh, so you mean the singularity when machines start to become conscious, and because then they'll have no need for us. We tend to hear a lot about certain approaches in AI, like deep neural nets or reinforcement learning, but we tend not to hear about many of the other tools and techniques being developed. Concepts like Bayesian updating, which is based on probability theory, involving updating estimates for decision-making in the light of new information as it becomes available. Another one is fuzzy logic. This is another method of decision-making that imitates humans and considers the grey between the black and white. So rather than the hard digital zeros and ones, on or off, there's that fuzzy bit in the middle. Something I think these days is lacking on social media, I have to say, where you're either on one side or the other. There's no middle ground. There's lots of shouting going on there. So there are lots of other model-based reasoning, case-based reasoning, multi-agent systems, genetic algorithms, neural networks. A lot of research is going on in artificial intelligence and encompasses many broad areas. So what is the difference now? Why has it become the zeitgeist in the last year, 2, 3 years? There are several reasons for this, and for the growing interest and excitement in AI, and I'll list 3 of them. One obvious one is the work of some of the most innovative artificial intelligence research companies, places like Google's DeepMind, probably one of the foremost AI research organizations in the world, and based here in London. Their deep neural net and reinforcement learning algorithms have hit the news. So you'll possibly have heard of AlphaGo and AlphaZero. These are algorithms. These are bits of code, but we sort of imagine them as some sort of smart things. Well, they are smart. They are already showing this rudimentary intuition and creativity, human traits that we might imagine are decades away in the future. They're not. And of course, DeepMind's research isn't a secret. They are not working, behind closed doors in these research labs without telling us what's going on. They're publishing their work in leading peer-reviewed journals like Nature and Science. The second reason for the current AI boom is the ever-growing amount of data that's becoming available. It's something that's been happening for the past few years. Just the sheer amount of data that can be mined and analyzed, as well as used to train the AIs themselves. And that is something that I think many people are quite rightly concerned about. The third reason, of course, is just the incremental and relentless increase in computational power, allowing researchers to develop more sophisticated algorithms. That, together with the internet, of course, means that AIs have broken out of the research labs and into cheaper, more affordable mobile devices like our smartphones. Over the past decade, the most exciting development, without doubt, has been the artificial neural networks and machine learning, which are far more effective in carrying out a whole range of tasks because they are very close to replicating the way humans think than the old, what was called classical AI. So I just want to say something about this, the celebrated example of DeepMind's AlphaGo program in defeating one of the world grandmasters at the Chinese game of Go. I don't know whether you know about the rules of Go, but it's regarded as somehow a much more creative game than chess. So we've known for many years, you remember the computer, is it Deep Blue that defeated Garry Kasparov? So the first computer that defeated a grandmaster at chess. But you can understand that, because in the game of chess, you can imagine a computer being able to compute all possible options. If I make this move, then what, then what, then what. It's a matter of computational speed and storage power. But with Go, there's a lot more creativity involved in playing that game, where you have black and white stones, and the game is to strategically try and surround your opponents on the board. Well, famously, AlphaGo, this AI algorithm, played against Lee Sedol, the Korean grandmaster, and in one of the games, it made a move early on that no one could understand, and everyone assumed it had made a mistake. A very naive move there. Well, it's obviously some bug in the code. And it was only much later in the game that it was realized that that had been such a fantastically clever move, because it allowed AlphaGo to defeat its human opponent. And they realized that there was a real, this wasn't just computational power. There was a certain level of creativity here, that it was now humans use these AI algorithms to teach them new creative ways of playing the game of Go. These computers, by the way, you'll give them a game to play, and there's just a few simple rules, and they'll play against themselves thousands of times in the space of a few hours, achieving superhuman abilities. Admittedly, in just one particular narrow game, where if you think about all the different skills that humans have, yes, they are still a long way from us. The transformative opportunities that be brought about by AI are staggering. The financial implications, let me say something about that. The financial implications alone are eye-watering. According to a 2016 estimate by PricewaterhouseCoopers, AI could contribute $15 trillion to the global economy just a decade from now, more than the output of China and India combined today. The UK is one of the leading countries in AI, one of the 3 or 4 countries at the forefront of AI research. And of course, we don't want to be giving up our lead in many areas of this technology. Because we know that AI is going to bring many economic and social benefits. It offers massive gains in efficiency and performance in almost all industry sectors, from drug discovery to logistics. AI handled with intelligence could be a great opportunity for the British economy, not only increasing productivity and efficiency, but in creating new jobs and new skills that will be required. But of course, the focus very often is on the opposite side, that it's going to replace us, and therefore many of us will be out of work. And of course, the opportunities that AI provides, as those opportunities grow, so too do the potential risks. Namely that, for example, AI will proliferate uncontrolled and unregulated in the hands of a few increasingly powerful technology firms at the expense of transparency, privacy, equality, and jobs. So we need to guard against that. I want to say, I'm not sure how we're doing for time. We are running a bit behind, so I'll carry on sticking to my... I don't want to skip too much of my notes. Let me say a little bit about transparency. Unlike the mistakes of the past, when there wasn't enough transparency about various scientific and technological issues that impacted on society, like nuclear power or genetic engineering, we must put transparency at the heart of AI developments and ensure that all the necessary regulations are in place. And I think, to its credit, the government, and despite its many distractions, and various organizations are putting into place committees, think tanks, people who are looking into what regulations need to be put in place. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have a stark choice between transparency and innovation. As I've mentioned, access to large quantities of data is one of the factors fueling the current AI boom, but the ways in which the data is gathered, the way in which the data are accessed needs to change so that innovative companies and academia, in fact, like the University of Surrey, have a fair and reasonable access to this data, while at the same time consumers are able to protect their privacy. So we as a society need to develop new frameworks and mechanisms like data portability and data trusts. Large companies that have control over vast quantities of data must be prevented from becoming ever more powerful. It is encouraging to see that organizations and institutions in industry, academia, and government are already working on developing tools that allow users to gain a deeper understanding of the algorithms that are working behind the scenes, and to enable the consumers to evaluate, critique, and gain a measure of how much we can trust what's going on. Another concern is that AI technologies advancing unchecked and unregulated could lead to greater inequality in society between the haves and have-nots. We have to ensure that this use of AI doesn't prejudice the treatment of particular groups in society, and the government must therefore incentivize the development of new approaches to auditing of data sets used by AI, as well as encouraging greater diversity in the training and recruitment of AI specialists. Society can be very unforgiving, you see, of any shortcomings of new technologies. I'll give you one quick example. Driverless cars. Think of the many thousands of people killed on the roads every year due to human error. In fact, it's widely acknowledged that about 80% of car accidents are caused by human error. Tiredness, distraction, alcohol, texting, or just bad judgment. These would be entirely eliminated if AIs were in control. Now, leaving aside the familiar ethical dilemma of who is culpable if a driverless car causes an accident, is it the owner, is it the company that sold the car to them, is it the computer scientist who developed the algorithm that contains the glitch? But as we eliminate 80% of human-caused accidents on the roads, new, unforeseen accidents may be caused by AIs themselves because they're not clever enough. Let's imagine, nevertheless, that these would be far, far rarer than the 80% of the accidents that have been avoided because we no longer have humans at the wheel. And let us assume that these glitches are ironed out in time. It's still a remarkable yet understandable attitude that the public are far less forgiving if a machine causes an accident resulting in a fatality. Never mind that we've avoided hundreds or thousands of people being killed in car accidents caused by human error, we would somehow still be more disturbed by the one fatality caused by an AI. It's an interesting moral dilemma. But aside from these important ethical issues, what about the more immediate issues and what most people are genuinely concerned about these days, and the impact of AI, robotics, and automation on our jobs? I'll show you a third and final clip now.
With AI muscling in on ever more of what we do ourselves, it's no wonder many worry about how the AI revolution might change our lives. Revolutions make people nervous, especially when they're not the ones in control. Probably the biggest fear is that AI might take people's jobs and they might never find work again.
One of the concerns of AI is that it is leading to this huge technological revolution that is going to affect society.
Yes.
I mean, we can't stop it, we can't mitigate against it.
And nor can we deny that there's change coming. But I think we can now look ahead and go, new jobs are coming in the way that new jobs came because of computers. And think how many people have jobs that are now only doable because they have a computer, have become possible or were invented because you have computers. So I can't deny that there's transformations coming, but I feel like almost pathologically positive that it's going to make us healthier and wealthier and enhance our capabilities and change jobs in the way that computing did as well.
You know, you look at civilization around us, that's all a product of intelligence. And I think of AI as a powerful tool, perhaps the most powerful tool of all, that will allow us to reach the full potential of humanity.
Well, we can't predict the future, so we can't say how many jobs are going to be impacted by AI, robotics, and automation. One report says 15 million jobs in the UK will be affected. Not lost, but affected, but nevertheless, that's a big number. But where does this number come from? If we're talking 5 years from now, then obviously it's going to be much lower than that. That's a ridiculously high number. If we're talking 30 years from now, then it's a number no one can predict. Okay, so it's meaningless. Undoubtedly, new jobs will be created, as you heard in that clip, as AIs take over current tasks. Indeed, automation has always replaced humans. This is not new, going all the way back to the Industrial Revolution. So in itself, maybe this should be expected. The economy will, I think, adapt to AI as it does to all new technologies in time. Technology hasn't historically led to long-term unemployment, although it has displaced workers from specific tasks but altered the type of employment available. Many jobs will, of course, be enhanced by AI. Some will disappear, new ones will, as yet unknown jobs will be created. A significant government investment, then, in skills and training is imperative if this disruption is to be navigated successfully and to the benefit of the working population and, of course, national productivity. The growth isn't guaranteed, and we need to consider carefully how AI can be used to raise productivity, because new technologies should not be viewed as a general panacea for the UK's wider economic issues. The Bank of England's chief economist, Andy Haldane, has warned that large swathes of the workforce in Britain could, in the coming years, face unemployment as AIs and robots take on many low-skilled jobs. But other commentators point out there's no reason not to expect AI to create as many jobs as it takes away. And I always prefer to say AI will take over tasks, not jobs. There are certainly tasks. Are there then tasks that AIs will find too difficult, that they may never replace us at? Undoubtedly, there are many jobs that require human interaction that we may not wish machines to ever replace us, such as in social care, in housing, or generally dealing with the young, the elderly, and those vulnerable in our communities. Yes, AI can have a role here alongside humans, but not to replace humans. Joseph Stiglitz is an economics Nobel Prize winner and former chief economist at the World Bank. He delivered a speech a few months ago at the Royal Society on artificial intelligence, where he argued that it may not be such a bad thing if AI takes over many of our jobs, because this would open up new employment in areas where there's a big demand for human workers, in education, in the health service, in the care for the elderly. He says that if we care about our children, if we care about our aged, if we care about the sick, we have ample room to spend more on these. So, if AIs take over many of our low-skilled tasks in transport and factories, supermarkets, call centres, that blow is softened because we could hire more people in those industries that rely more on human interactions. How do we engage with wider society, with the public on these issues? Something that's close to my heart as a professor of public engagement in science. Should certain avenues of AI be abandoned because there's a significant objection to the idea? Or is a technology push sometimes the right thing? After all, if you think back, there were objections to the idea of heart transplants when that was a new technology. As AIs take over many of the tasks carried out by humans, retraining will become a lifelong necessity and a vital part of our economy. universities will have a major role to play here. There will need to be developed a partnership with industry. Lessons have to be learned from the need for apprenticeship schemes. Early stages of education is where children will need to be adequately prepared for working with and using AIs. So we'll require an overhaul of school curricula. For all children, the basic knowledge and understanding necessary to navigate an AI-driven world is going to be essential. In particular, the ethical design and use of technology has to become an integral part of the school curriculum. It may even be that our lifelong learning work patterns have to change from gaining a training or profession and then spending the rest of your career in that field to one where we go through lifelong learning and, in a sense, staying ahead of the game as AI start to take over certain tasks. We need to be one step ahead of them. In closing, I just want to leave you with a message from the late Stephen Hawking. Stephen has been widely, certainly before he died in recent years, he was widely quoted in the press as offering dire warnings about the coming of AI and the machines taking over the world. Well, Stephen was keen on the sound bites because he knew I think that was a sort of a rather mischievous streak that he had in him. But I want to end with a quote from Stephen Hawking, which is somewhat more optimistic. He says, perhaps the tools of this new technological revolution, with these tools, we'll be able to undo some of the damage done to the natural world by the last one, industrialization. And surely we'll aim to finally eradicate disease and poverty. Every aspect of our lives will be transformed. In short, success in creating AI could be the biggest event in the history of our civilization. His point is that the challenges that face us in the 21st century aren't going to be made worse. We don't add to them with this concern about AI. AI may be able to solve the problems that our puny human brains have not been able to solve and that face us in the 21st century. AI is going to transform our lives in the coming decades, as I said at the start, even more than the internet has over the past few. We just have to make sure we're ready for it. Thank you very much.
Jim, thank you. And Jim, along with a number of our academic colleagues, including Professor Adrian Hilton, Director of the Centre for Vision, Speech and Signal Processing, home of much of what goes on in our AI research at Surrey, are here this evening. So please do take the opportunity to speak to them when we're done. Now, I can see quite a few people loitering at the back, and that can mean only one thing. GSA, take it away.
March went out like a lion, whipping up the water in the bay. Then April cried and stepped aside, and along came pretty little May. May was full of promises, but she didn't keep them quick enough for some. And a crowd of doubting Thomases was predicting that the summer'd never come.
But it's coming by come, you can feel it come, you can feel it in your heart, you can see it on the ground. You can hear it in the trees, you can smell it.
Look around, look around, look around. June is busting out all over the meadow and the hill. Buds are busting out of bushes and the romping river pushes every little wheel that wheels beside a mill. June is busting out all over. The feeling is getting so intense that the young Virginia creepers have been hugging the bejeepers out of all the morning glories on the fence. Because it's June, 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 June. Just because it's June, June, June. Fresh and alive and gay and young, June is a love song sweetly sung. June is busting out all over. The ocean is full of Jack and Jills. With her little tail a swishing, every lady fish is wishing that a male would come and grab her by the gills. June is busting out all over. The sheep aren't sleeping anymore. All the rams that chase the ewe sheep are determined there'll be new sheep, and the ewe sheep aren't even keeping score. On account it's June, 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 June. Just because it's June, June, June. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair and send him on his way. I'm gonna wave that man right out of my arms. I'm gonna wave that man right out of my arms. I'm gonna wave that man right out of my arms and send him on his way. Don't try to patch it up. Tear it up, tear it up. Wash him out, dry him out. Push him out, fly him out. Cancel him and let him go. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair and send him on his way. If the man don't understand you, if you fly on separate beams, waste no time, make a change. Ride that man right off your range. Rob him out of the roll call and drum him out of your dreams. Waste no time, weep no more. Show him what the door is for. Rob him out of the roll call and drum him out of your dreams. You can't light a fire when the wood's so wet. You can't make a butterfly strong. You can't fix an egg when it ain't quite good. And you can't fix a man when he's wrong. You can't put back a petal when it falls from a flower, or sweeten up a fella when he starts turning sour. Oh no, his eyes get dull and fishy when you look for glints and gleams. Waste no time, make a switch, drop him in the nearest ditch. Rob him out of the roll call and drum him out of your dreams. Oh no,
getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Pull out the stopper, let's have a whopper, but get me to the church on time. I've got to be there in the morning, spruced up and looking in me prime. Girls come and kiss me, so where you miss me, but get me to the church on time. If I am dancing, roll out the floor. If I am whistling, boot me at the door. For I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Kick up a rumpus, but don't lose your compass, and get me to the church. Get me to the church. For God's sake, get me to the church on time. I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Drug me or jail me, stamp me and mail me, but get me to the church on time. I've got to be there in the morning, spruced up and looking in me prime. Some bloke who's able, lift up the table, but get me to the church on time. If I am flying, then shoot me down. If I am wooing, get her out of town. For I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Feather and Tommy, call out the army, but get me to the church. Get me to the church. For God's sake, get me to the church on time. I'm getting married in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Hail and salute me, then hold up and boot me, but get me to the church. Get me to the church. For God's sake, get me to the church on time.
One of the real joys of doing what I do is being able to listen to GSA at a lot of our events. And some of you who will also have been to the Yvonne Arnaud Theatre the other week to listen to that set will have seen a sellout theatre and a similarly warm welcome. So thank you, GSA, that was spectacular. I'm about to send you all... I'm about to send you back upstairs now for the reception, but I thought I should explain first what your rather colourful lanyards and name badges mean. And Alex, no, it is not because we're in LGBT History Month. Instead, because there are so many of you here this evening, and I see that more have arrived during the course of this part, we've tried to make it easy for you to reconnect. And so your lanyard colour reflects the decade in which you graduated. Yellow for those who graduated after 2000, red for the 90s, green for the 80s, and I'm afraid because there are fewer of you, purple all the time before that. And the Florence Hall upstairs has also been zoned, so head for the coloured balloon, and it's, you'll see it, it's big, which matches the colour of your lanyard, and that will give you a chance to bump it.